All right, you should see an EMD chart here right now. You see an EMD chart?
We do.
For those of you that are new, we still have some new folks coming in here. This is the Mid-Cap 400 Futures EMD. We like to trade this. It's a 4-range chart. This is today. And what I wanted to show is a couple of things. First, I want to go back to last night. This is all Pacific time here because I'm here in California. Midnight Pacific is right here. That's actually the start of the European session. And you can see that right before the midnight mark here, we had a precipitous sell-off where the equities just tanked here. And then shortly after midnight, for about 4 or 5 hours, the markets just kind of went into a choppy consolidation mode right in here. We did have some news at 5:30 Pacific. We got jobs numbers. We got a couple other numbers that were fairly bullish. And if you were an early morning person, this is 8 o'clock Eastern, 5 Pacific, right in here. Here's 5:30 right in here. This was the news. And you can see you got a beautiful breakout to the upside right in here. Just a textbook breakout trade. We ran all the way up. This is, I mean, you could call the breakout was around, I don't know, 68, 968-ish. Could have taken it around this pivot. See where it took the pivot out there? By the way, this is what we're showing here is trend trading pivot to pivot. So you're looking for a break, and if you trade multiples, of course, you take profits at the pivots on the way up. Now, right around the open, 6:30 Pacific was right about in here. This is the open of the equity markets in the U.S. was right about, I don't know, probably somewhere right about in there. This was actually a poke up at the open. You got what we call a yellow bar probe trade. This is a pullback in the direction of the trend right in here. Right around 6:35, 6:36. Now they've been doing this lately. I've noticed in the first 5 minutes of equity trading, there have been some pops, some quick pops. Of course, you see here we retrace right under the pivot reverse, 6/8 at 72.70, giving us an early first long trade to the upside here. Pivot to pivot, takes out this pivot, does not quite get to this this one up here at 76.60. Now let's go ahead and advance this chart a little bit. Now, right before the news, we did have some news at 7 o'clock Pacific, and you can see that the news, it looks like, kind of leaked, is what we're thinking. And you know, some businesses get, you know, early access to the news, and it gives them kind of a jump on the market. I know that's not very fair to the rest of us here, but that's kind of the way the world works. So it's 7 o'clock, and what I want to show here, trading the news, 7 o'clock was here, Pacific, and you had an initial reaction down to the news like such. Remember, there was just a very quick sell-off here. So your long trade stopped out, right? Your long trade stopped out from the early morning break, taking you out here. See the stop out? And you didn't want to short this. And by the way, this happened very quickly. I'm talking about just a couple of minutes. You didn't want to short this. This was not a short trade. Came down and just checked the swing level right above that pivot. See it? And then right before 7 o'clock, you get this little pop back up right in here. Right there. There was your long trade right here. You could have waited until you took out that pivot again. And then remember I said it's hitting its head at 78.50, 78.50, bank some coin. Remember that number? Does that sound familiar? 78.50, 78.50, bank the coin. Well, that's why I was saying it. See the pivot right there? Bank the coin. That's where I got out. Right there. And now, what was interesting is that then for about 15 to 20 minutes, you went into this little consolidation patch right here. See how you went sideways? You were basically between the 8 pivot and the extreme overbought consolidation right in here. And then the final long trade of the morning was right around 7:25, right in here, right, coming right up on 7:30. And those are key trigger areas for us, right? 6:35. You know, right after the open, 7 o'clock Pacific, because there's usually some news. We trade the reaction to the news, and then 7:30, and then 8 o'clock. Those tend to be Pacific times. Translate those to your local time if you're not here in California. So here's that last pop. You could have got in, put the buy order right above the swing here at 78.50. See the buy? yellow bar probe, consolidation support, breakout trade to the upside, trading with the trend from pivot to pivot. Right, here's a pivot, took out that pivot, that was a good out. Extreme overbought 2/8 pivot at 80.50. Remember that number, 80.50? It's hitting its head, get out. So when we say that in the trading room, that's why we're saying it. We're saying it for reasons. Reasons being it is topping out. You've had your 30, 35, 40 tick run. You've had your 25, 30 tick run. Each one of these little pops don't look like much, but if you've taken this one, 25 ticks, here you're looking at about, I don't know, better part of 40 ticks. And here you're looking at, well, right at about 30 ticks. That's a $300 trade, $400 trade, $250 trade. Now, what I want to say is this. You don't have to take all of these, right? You don't have to take all of them. Some traders I know would be very happy with just one of these 3 trades. So that's the way you got to look at it. Each one of these is like a plane or a train coming down the track. You know how a plane and a train comes like every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever? You got a fresh one coming down the track. And a nice trending day like that, that's what that is. That's what these retracements and consolidations are for. They're allowing you to get in to capture the next move. Now let's see what happened after that. Here is 8 o'clock Pacific right here. Let's come over to the present day, real time. Here you have a pullback. You have a little consolidation. 8 o'clock actually kind of marked the high of the morning right here. See it, at least for now, right? 8 o'clock right in here. This was the peak. Pulled back, consolidation, not a trend change. Gary was saying, and he was correctly saying, that we're still pretty much kind of in an uptrend here, right? You can still put an uptrending line underneath the lows from the morning like such. So you can make the case that you had a consolidation patch here. This is only about like 15 minutes ago. And you can make the case that now, I didn't take this trade, but some of you might have, that you're actually in a breakout trade right now, and you're hitting this pivot. You're trying to challenge the swing high in the morning right in here. Now, if you'd taken the breakout, you would have been long maybe, I don't know, 79.50. You probably banked a little coin, 10 ticks at the pivot, and you'd have it stop close to break even right at somewhere right at the entry right in here. Pre-market, that's a good question. Roger asking a question about pre-market volume on EMD. You got to be careful about that. Sometimes on EMD it's a thinly traded, sometimes pre-market. Sometimes the spreads are large, 3 to 5 to 7 ticks, and sometimes your bid offer is only like 2 or 1 or 3. So you got to watch that pre-market. You're right. After the market opens, not so bad. The spreads tighten to 1 or 2 ticks, and your volume and your liquidity is solid after 6:30, after the open of the market right in here. Generally, you won't have a problem getting filled on EMD. I haven't anyway. Russell chart looks very similar to this. I think I have a Russell chart here somewhere. Let me see if I can find it. Just give me 1 second, please. Let me do a quick recap on the Russell. You're getting a fresh high on EMD. You see the fresh high?
You're doing that too. If
Yeah.
everybody will notice there, when that came down and did that red bar probe,
Uh-huh.
the very aggressive trade was clear down there just under 978. We even called it. But of course, you got to realize that could be a trend change too. But in a today, so you had higher lows, higher highs. We mentioned that was, still quite long. And I know some of our people took the red bar and actually took profit, and real quickly off that first burst even, and then left the trade in.
So I'm going to put the Russell chart right next to the EMD chart so you can kind of see the two, how they're working together here. Stand by 1 second, please. One second, please. Okay, here you go. You should see the Russell chart right next to EMD here. Do you see those two together?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let me pull a little more data in here and get this squared up on EMD. 1 second. There we go. All right. So you can see very similar price action on the Russell. Here was your retracement before the news. Here was your little run up after the news. Pivots are quite a bit further apart on the Russell. Here was your poke up, punch up. Here was your retracement back into support to this higher level pivot here. Yellow bar probe, 5/8 pivot, 8/1640. higher level of support, uptrend, pull the trigger, up you get. There's your second long trade after the open, after the news. And you could make the case that you had your third probe trade to the long side. Support just under the pivot right here at 820. So you're getting a nice level of support right at the pivot there. And then of course you had the breakout occur around 2150. This was your opportunity to get long again on the Russell right in here. Read stealth returns, market breaks up, and now on the Russell you'd actually be banking a little profit if you traded multiple contracts right up in here, because notice you powered right to the 7/8 pivot and you're kind of chopping around it right now. See the consolidation occurring around this pivot. So here again, what we're doing is we're trading pivot to pivot in the direction of the prevailing trend, which of course today was up. You have an uptrend, very strong bullish move. Market's been trending up for weeks and weeks and weeks. Since the beginning of the year, the market has been trending up. So when you get these strong breakout days, this is where you're going to make fully probably 65–70% of your money is made on trending days like this. Other days, not so much. Chopping days, sideways days, you try to scratch, you try to get out of break even, maybe you lose a little bit of money. But on nice trending days where you're heading up, this is where you pull the trigger. You get in, pull the trigger, you get in, you get out, bank your coin. In the direction, trading in the direction of the trade. These pivots give you a nice structure to your chart. They get generally pretty good on support and resistance levels. You can see where it comes up and hits, pulls back, gets support, breaks up, pulls back, gets support, heads to the next pivot. So you just watch those pivot levels and trade in the direction of the trend. It's a very simple way to get in and out of trades on a nice trending day like today. All right, good. Well, that's kind of the recap I had. Market pushing higher here. Tighten your stops if you are long, because I think we're going to be due for a little retracement here shortly. Got a high energy coming up anytime? Anybody? I didn't.
9:55 your time.
What's that? What was that, Gary?
9:55 your time.
9:55. Okay, so I got about another hour and a half. So who knows? You know, cash markets are strong. Dow's up 84.50. This is near the highs of the day. S&P's nice and strong. Nasdaq's up. Cash market's doing very well today. How do we do? Everybody nicely green? Got some nicely green hands in the room today. This is a coin bank and making money day, definitely. Now we do have a pro webinar tonight, 5 o'clock Pacific. We'll send reminders out shortly here. So if you have any questions or want to learn more about the pro package, come to that. If you can't make it, it's recorded. Usually get it posted the next day. We did clean up the subscriber page. If you go into the subscriber page, you're going to notice we cleaned that up quite a bit. And we do have the videos on there now for the, what's that called, Gary? The alert trader, alert?
Right.
Feature, new feature that came out, the alerts. Let me show that real quick. Just give me a second, then we'll wrap up here.
Yeah, one thing I'd mention too, and this isn't a sales webinar by any means, but if you're actually teetering on whether or not to have the pro package versus the other package, I can tell you this, that extra